So we're here at the Abbey with Harvey Steel. Obviously, Harvey, we know you personally from playing in the Cambridge United Academy and the under-18 side recently. You've also recently become the club's youth team mental health ambassador. But what have you been up to with yourself recently, and how have you found lockdown as a young aspiring footballer?
Well, I found lockdown quite positive in a way. Obviously, with all the bad stuff going on and the deaths and all the serious stuff with that. I'd like to think I've used it in a positive way. Obviously, I found out my decision that I wouldn't be kept on at the club during lockdown, but since then I've kind of used it to branch out into networking on social media to different people. I've used it to contact the local paper to do a little bit of writing for them, and I've just tried to grow my own Steel Views platform, while obviously keeping fit and trying to practice and train as much as possible.
Okay, cool. If you could give one piece of advice then to a youngster wanting to be an aspiring young footballer today, what would it be?
It'd probably be to enjoy yourself. There's a lot of seriousness that comes with football, so just enjoy it.
What's it like as an academy player? Like, what does a typical week entail? What sort of pressures are you under as an academy player trying to aim for that professional contract?
Well, you've got loads of different pressures. You've got obviously the pressures of your own team, of trying to start every week for the youth team. Then you've obviously got impressing the manager or the youth team manager. Then you've obviously got the youth team manager who feeds back to Mark Bonner and the higher staff. So you kind of goes in a pattern of pressures, but there's a lot of pressures throughout the week.
As an academy player, do you train every day? Do you train with the first team, for instance?
Potentially, if you get called over, it's a lot done on if the first team need you in a way, or if you're required over there. But listen, there's a competition within the group. Obviously, everybody wants to be over there. Everyone wants to be training with the first team as a youngster. So that there's that pressure as well. If your mate gets called over, it's kind of like, ooh, it's a little bit of pressure on me here. It's like, I want to be over there. But also, then once you do get called over there, there's the pressure on you to deliver and to step up your game, really.
Okay. And obviously, growing up as a young footballer in the academy, who would you say was a big influence on yourself going through the Cambridge United Academy?
There's been different people. I think Tom Pell stands out because I've known Tom since I was 8 and unfortunately didn't get signed by the academy then. Johnny Martin, before I signed for the academy, Johnny was working for the Shadow Squad or the Shadow Academy. I'm not too sure what it's called now. And he was quite a big influence on me. I mean, he was the first person to put me in defence. Okay. So I'd always thought of myself as an attacking player, a wide player. I love getting forwards, and he stuck me at. I think he stuck me at centre back one game.
And these days you're playing as a right back, aren't you?
Yeah, these days I'm playing as a right back. So at the time I was like, I don't want to play here. I'm a winger. He's like, you'll be a defender. Like, I think you'll be a defender. So he stuck me at the back, and over time, slowly, and when I came into the academy, I found myself in defence and now at full-back. So Tom Pell is definitely a big
influence?
Yeah, influence on all of the lads throughout the whole academy. But Johnny Martin's probably the one who had the biggest influence on my game as such.
And how old was you when you joined the Cambridge United Academy then?
So I was 14. I think it was the pre-season of the under-14 season that I got signed. I did have a trial when I was 8, but unfortunately I didn't get taken on. So obviously I just fell back into the Shadow Squad, Shadow Academy, whatever it was called at the time, and was just enjoying my football, playing village local football for Histon, Milton, and then the year before I got signed by Cambridge, I started playing for Cambridge City. So Cambridge City age group had started up, and that was brilliant. I mean, it was playing with all of the lads that I played with around from county and district and things like that. We were kind of put all into one team. So that was brilliant. Obviously that didn't last too long as I got signed by Cambridge, which was even better, I guess.
And obviously as a young lad, obviously, how does it affect your schooling, being in the academy at that sort of age? hanging out with friends. How does that kind of go on with the pressures of being, oh, I'm in the Cambridge United Academy all of a sudden, oh, I could be a professional footballer here, sort of thing?
Yeah, it's tough. You kind of have to take a step up in your maturity, because you're not just playing village football. You are at a professional club. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. Schoolwork, obviously, all you want to do is be playing football.
Yeah.
You just want to be at Cambridge, training with the lads, playing. So in my situation, I felt my schoolwork did take a little bit of a hit, but that was just through my focus being elsewhere. Of obviously, listen, I want to be a professional footballer. That was where I wanted to be. My head was always out in the out on the playground playing football and things like that. But no, it is really good being an academy player. But the pressures are there, even at the age of 14. To 18, to the first team at whatever age you might come into it at.
So talking about pressures, you've been open in talking about how you've had issues with your own mental health. Obviously, recently, more significant effort has been made to remove the stigma of speaking out about mental health in general, especially here at Cambridge United. We've seen this recent Heads Up campaign kind of introduced. Obviously, how did you first realise you had a problem with mental health, and what was it that kind of triggered that, would you say? Would you say it's the pressures of, like a mixture of things, the pressures have been in the academy, growing up, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think my struggles started a little bit before I actually went into my scholarship. So I think I dealt quite well with the academies of being a academy player from the ages of 14 to 16. There was a few things along the way that were hard to deal with, but dealt with. And it was just before, it was when I left school, it was the period between when I'd done my GCSEs and started my scholarship. I had a bit of a, not a fallout, I kind of just had a bit of a thing with my mates where we kind of drifted apart, and I kind of drifted apart from the group and kind of went on the road of, right, this is where I want to go, I want to put all of my efforts and focus into my football. And they were all off on their summer holidays, which of course, a long 10-week holiday or something, enjoying themselves, having a drink, going out late and things like that, whereas I kind of couldn't do them things. So I kind of had to take a step back from that, which was difficult. That was difficult. I'd always known them lads at school, they'd always been kind of my support bubble. And within the space of a month or so, I
kind of disappeared.
Yeah, disappeared. So that was kind of quite hard to deal with, and it kind of left me in a place of a bit of loneliness, because obviously I didn't have that support bubble or network. When I was then coming into football, it was kind of just football, repeat.
Yeah.
There was no real escape from playing football and being here, which, like we said, there's a lot of pressures that come with it, and if you can't escape them pressures, then it does come...
Kind of builds up then, doesn't it?
Builds up, exactly, and slowly it all kind of built up on my shoulders, was how I felt, and it kind of stemmed from there, though.
And how did you feel after reaching out and seeking the help and support? What was done sort of for you as a young player in the game, support on mental health?
Yeah, well, I think I realised, and my family realised a lot before I reached out to the club that there was a problem. It was kind of one of them things that I was a bit apprehensive of speaking out about. As we know, it's one of them topics which isn't...
There's definitely a stigma attached to it, isn't there, for youngsters,
exactly.
It seems.
And it's kind of, I don't know, it felt weird that at this age I kind of felt this way. So we knew that there was a problem with myself and my mental state, but we didn't quite reach out. We tried to deal with it like in-house and that way, but that didn't really work. It then escalated, and there was a point where me and my mum went to the doctors and said, right, listen, we need some help. And Mum was like, right, I'm going to set up a meeting with Tom Pell, the academy manager, and Jimmy Unwin, the youth team coach, and tell them, like, they need to know. I was like, do you have to? It was it was one of them where I was kind of at the point where my mum kind of took the decision out of my hands. She said, right, like, you need to do this. I'm going to do this for you to help you get better. So They sorted the meeting out. My dad and my mum went to speak with them, and they were really helpful. Said, listen, take some time off if you want some time off. I remember I think it was about a week before my mum and dad had that meeting. I didn't want to go into football. It was one of them that was just keeping me down all the time. They said, do you want time off? They allowed me like Monday morning off to go to my counsellor. They were really supportive. But I think the biggest thing for me was that once we'd kind of spoken to Cambridge, it was kind of like, right, how do we deal with this now? And my dad got in contact with the PFA. So fortunate, all of the lads who are scholars are part of the PFA. And the PFA is like a brilliant organisation. They've helped me with some education stuff as well. But my dad rang them up and basically said, like, this is my son's story, like, could you help? And within about a week, they had sorted me out. I think it was 10 sessions or 10 weeks, one a week, with a counsellor just in the local area out towards Trumpington Way. So that was brilliant. It was all paid for, everything handled. All I had to do was turn up, talk and leave. No, he obviously didn't talk about it with anyone else. Cambridge were fine. But yeah, one of the things I kind of struggled was kind of telling the lads, because obviously mum and dad had the conversation with the staff. Obviously the staff weren't going to go to the lads, right, look here, because they didn't know how to really approach it with my story. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the first one to have the problem, but I'm not sure whether it's been highlighted enough over the years of boys having these problems. So when I was coming in late on a Monday morning, it was kind of like the lads were kind of asking me, where you been and that, and it was kind of slowly I kind of got to the point where I just told them before I was kind of like saying like,
like bantering them and such,
yeah, and just saying I was at the doctor's or something,
yeah.
But there's only so many doctor's appointments you can have where. So yeah, I slowly told them. It was probably one by one or in little groups, and let them in on what was basically happening. And they were.
And how were the rest of the lads with support?
Yeah, no, they were brilliant. I mean, my good friend Lewis Simper, he was always there for me, texting me, and I mean Harry Darling and Joe Neal, I'm good friends with them as well. They were just as good. They were always making sure I was all right around the training ground, pulling me aside for 2 minutes.
It's nice to have that support of the lads.
Definitely, and it was something that I was really apprehensive of. And I was quite scared and worried. I was thinking, like, this could affect everything. But no, to have that support from the lads was
and most importantly from your mum and your dad as well, for actually taking the situation out of your hands, I think, and saying, right, we need to do this. Kind of snowballs everything into place then, doesn't it?
Definitely. I think when you're in that state and when you get to that place where you are struggling,
you see things differently.
Mentally, you don't see things straight. You don't see them rationally. So when I was obviously like, no, we can get through this. We can do this in house. I can talk to you guys, and it will be fine. And it doesn't quite work like that. When you are in that state, you need the proper medical help. And once they realise that, right, we can't be the saviour to this, we need to get some external help, that kind of changed everything, and that's when things started picking up in a positive way.
So obviously, what would be your message then to someone who's young and who may be suffering in their own battles in mental health and are afraid to speak out and seek help? What would you say would be a good suggestion to do?
Honestly, it's one of them things that we don't do enough. Obviously there is that stigma around it, and there's that thing that kind of makes people reluctant to talk out about it, but hopefully, I mean, I'm trying to speak out about my problems and struggles, so that might be a lad from Peterborough, Stevenage, it might be a younger lad in Cambridge Academy sees it and things, and may at one point in their life come across the same thoughts, feelings and things like that. So if you do feel like that, and listen, there's no right or wrong way to feel. Last year when it was quite bad, I remember I used to go do my pre-season training, and I used to go down to the rec, and I I had so much certainty in my life. I still had another year at Cambridge. Family was all good. Everything was all certain around me. But like in here, there was something that was keeping me down. So, listen, people could argue that you got everything good. Like you're a footballer at Cambridge, you got all this, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And if you might think you have this perfect life and you have no reason to feel like this, but you can still feel like it. So if you are in that position, just talk out, speak to someone, speak to your mum, dad, brother, anyone there is. And don't think you can deal with it by yourself, because that's one thing I thought I could do, but little did I know it was all just building up.
And obviously when
shoulders.
you've gone to realise that there is a big support network out there. If you speak out, there is the help and you can seek support.
Definitely, and that's one thing that I didn't know was out there. I didn't know that was available to me as a young lad. I didn't think, it's mental health, maybe one of them things you associate with older people or adults, but as a young lad I was surprised that there is such a big network of support out there, and there's so many different companies or organisations that can help you. So there's so much support.
You obviously became the youth team mental health ambassador with the Cambridge United Community Trust. Let's talk about that. What does that kind of role entail? Is it kind of helping people in terms of with the emotions that you've felt and the mental health that you've suffered with, and educating people slightly with, say, the help of the Supporters Trust, the Community Trust, sorry?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Community Trust doing some brilliant work around mental health. I know that's headed up by Darryl Coakley. So a few times I went into schools to kind of, I mean, it's almost breaking down that stigma there is, and it's kind of understanding them thoughts and feelings that might come. I mean, I went into Comberton Village College, must have been a group of year 7 or 8, but we delivered this session. I went along with Mark Bonner and Darryl, and we spoke to the kids about obviously the thoughts and feelings that can come, and Darryl took them through a presentation and said, look, this is this, talk about this, and all to do with mental health stuff, which is, I think, is really important, because for me, I didn't have that when I was younger. I didn't have that at my school when I was growing up. So when maybe this did come along, I didn't know there was a support network, didn't know how to deal with it. I
think it's about educating youngsters as well, isn't it?
Definitely.
Which is something the Community Trust are very good at doing.
Definitely. And even I did a session with, I'm not too sure, it's basically an older age group with people who suffer with mental health difficulties. And that was brilliant. And there was about 6 or 7 come along. We played some football, and honestly, it was unbelievable. The smiles on their faces and things like that. They're happy playing football. They're all together. Afterwards, we went to sit in the
Abbey Arms.
Yeah, the Abbey Arms, and we sat and had a bit of cake and a cup of tea, and we just talked, and it was really nice and refreshing that the club are doing things for older people as well. Okay,
and obviously we've touched on that. Unfortunately, you didn't get a professional contract here at Cambridge United through the academy. Your ambitions are still to be a professional footballer, of course, foremost. What are your plans for the season and aims going forward? Where are we at in terms of where we're going to see Harvey Steel potentially?
Well, we're a little bit unsure. Obviously, the situation has put a lot of things on hold. A lot of clubs' budgets and everything's kind of changed within the clubs to a certain degree. So, in regards to professional clubs, I mean, professional clubs is where I want to be. I would like to aim for a professional club, to have that daily training and to try and stay within the pro game. However, that might not be possible. Of course, I'm realistic to the task. I'm realistic to how many players are out of contract and all these different things. But
do you think it would be harder this summer in terms of looking for a club with the current pandemic that's going on, and a lot of people been free agents?
Potentially, but I mean, I think it was Barry Corr said to us. He said, "Don't be that lad when you're older who says, I got released during the coronavirus period. I was the one who, I was so unlucky. I couldn't do anything about it." So I'm quite reluctant to say, it's going to be a lot harder. Obviously, there'll be difficulties. There's difficulties every year. There's lads who get released all over the country. So for me, it's just about finding the best opportunity that I can at this moment in time, because I don't want to be that lad when I'm older who says, I got released during the coronavirus period and didn't go anywhere with my football.
I guess it's important to put yourself out there, isn't it? Like, and kind of be contacting clubs and knocking on their door, so to speak.
Definitely. I create myself a little highlights video, got all my clips from my scholarship, put that together, and put that out on YouTube, across my Twitter, and promoted it on Instagram and things like that, so people could see it. And I've been in contact with some managers to obviously say, what are your plans? Could I come in? Could I train with you? And just basically doing what I can do. I think one thing that sticks with me, and I think it will stick with me forever, I even heard it on the radio the other day and I was just shocked, is control the controllables. And that's what Tom Pell told me, because I had a habit of kind of getting drawn to other things and focusing on other players or other things that I couldn't affect. So
getting distracted.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's about controlling what I can control. I can control how fit I am. I can control what clubs I speak to, if I speak to clubs, if I don't. So it's all about just doing the things.
Making your own opportunities for yourself as well, isn't it?
Definitely.
Obviously, away from football, you've looked into sports journalism. What kind of got you into the sports journalism idea? What have you been doing in regards to that? Obviously, I've read some of your loan reports on your fellow under-18 players, found them enjoyable. You talking out about your mental health issues and stuff. Tell people about what you've been doing in terms of sports journalism and how that's kind of going as a side kind of career, so to speak, alongside football.
Yeah, no, the journalism route is something that really interests me. It's a weird one. I kind of almost stumbled across it. It was kind of almost like a thought at the back of my mind, which only once I then was looking for a second option to do with alongside football did it come to mind. And it took a month or so when I remember writing a piece at the moment for a company or an organisation called LAPS, which is Life After Professional Sport.
And that's Robbie Simpson, isn't it, behind
exactly
that? Ex-Cambridge lad.
And it was when the second years last year got released, it kind of, the penny dropped. It was kind of like, this is serious. Like, it's all happy for the first part of the year and everything, and then you kind of get to the business end and it's like, okay, right, I've seen my teammates just go now.
Start to panic, yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, right, I can't define myself as just a footballer anymore. So I started looking elsewhere, started looking for different career options. Obviously there was personal training and things like that, which obviously I'd be quite suited to due to my athletic capabilities. But it didn't really quite catch me. I think it wasn't. And then I did some work with Tom Stewart here, and I was writing a piece on, I think it was our Bournemouth quarter-final in the Cup, the under-18s. And I came out of that day I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed writing about football. I mean, I can talk about football for days. I could write about football for days. So why don't I look into something like that? And I reached out to Jake Humphreys on Instagram, so it's a bit of a shot in the dark. I mean, I messaged a few people. I tried to email like Craig Mitch and other people who are in the broadcasting and journalism, but I got a reply from Jake Humphreys, and he just said, start local, start with your local newspaper, put your story out there, and kind of go from there, and slowly you'll build up a reputation, and people will know about your stuff and things like that. So that's kind of where it started, and then I started up Steel Views, which, I mean, I started it, I think it was in something like November, but I didn't post until January, I think it was. It was one of them things where it was kind of like, ooh, how do I start? I mean, I wanted different content, so it was kind of like, if I just write about Cambridge here, well, Tom Stewart does that, other people do that. So I kind of thought I'd start close to home with my own under-18s team. I know the under-18s don't get too much coverage with the media side, so I thought, right, well, I'll start writing match reports. I mean, I'm in the game, so I'm there every Saturday, and started that way, and that was a good little start to start getting the structure of the writing and things like that. And then I thought, how can I get more people? Obviously, some people want to read about the under-18s, but how can I get more people interested? And that's where the Loan Watch started. So I thought, there's 5 lads out on loan. Who's covering what they do? So I thought I will. Wrote them. I think it was every Saturday. Once I got the results, and I messaged the boys. Oh, how long did you play? Got all the information and put them together and started posting them out, which is probably where it picked up most, because people, the Cambridge United fans, wanted to know how Tom Knowles, Lewis Simper, Tom Dickens were doing out on loan. So that got a bit more attention. And then I moved on to one piece I did, must have been a couple of months ago now, is the unseen pressures on academy players. And I mean, that was just a piece I kind of...
That's the piece I was impressed with.
Yeah, I kind of felt like obliged to write it. People sit in the stands at the weekend and batter abuse at people and shout and, oh, you're rubbish, you're this, you're that. But they kind of don't really understand what goes in behind the scenes, and like them pressures we talked about, the pressures you can endure from under 8s like Lewis Simper, who's been there since under 8s, to under 18s are massive, and the responsibilities and the pressures of friends and all these different things. And I don't know, I kind of just put it all into one piece, and the reaction to it was brilliant. Took me by surprise. I think it's not far off 1,000 views or reads or whatever it might be. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all started and where we are now. Started up the website, which is kind of a platform where I can post my stuff out.
Dad done the logo, didn't he?
Yeah.
Good old Dad.
Yeah, Dad did that. Dad sorted that out. Took me a couple of weeks to design the website and that, and every now and again I change a few things to it, but it's quite a basic website, but it's kind of just a place where I can put stuff, and I can put a link to it on my Twitter, and people will click on it and it's there to read. So that's kind of where we are. We're starting local, starting small, with obviously the goal of getting bigger. But on that, I remember I spoke to Mark Roberts obviously about because obviously when I found LinkedIn, I connected with lots of people, and it kind of says their education history and their background, and I saw that Mark had done a sports broadcast and journalism degree at Staffordshire University through the PFA. So obviously I was aware of the PFA course, and that was something I was looking to do. And so I thought I'll give Mark a message and see what he says. And he was like, remember, this isn't your plan B. This is something that goes alongside it. Like, you don't just have to be a footballer. You can...
Something to fall back on, isn't it?
Definitely. And he said, I did this degree the 2 years I got promoted with Stevenage. So it's like, it doesn't hinder your football. It doesn't hinder your focus to football.
Something else to focus on, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of it can take your mind off it. It can give you that sense of security behind as well. So if football doesn't work out, you've always got that to fall back on.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to hearing more from you then.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
No worries.